Hi, welcome to another episode of ColdFusion. On October 16th, 2023, a young man looked around the courtroom nervously. He made eye contact with his ex-girlfriend, Caroline Ellison. She was about to testify and expose the dark depths of his deception. With every word that came out of her mouth, his whole world began to collapse. And by the end of her statement, he was finished. Just a year ago, he was the darling of the cryptocurrency world. His company was worth $32 billion, but now that was all gone. He was now facing 7 charges and up to 115 years in prison. The scene I'm describing is, of course, the trial of Sam Bankman-Fried. If you've been following this channel for a little while, you would have seen my piece on the multi-billion-dollar FTX collapse. It really was an unbelievable story of how a group of ragtag kids could engineer a fraud so large that they bought themselves government influence. Today, we'll take a look at the court case.
You are watching ColdFusion TV.
So to bring everyone up to speed, a quick recap. FTX was a cryptocurrency exchange and hedge fund. It was founded in 2019 by Sam Bankman-Fried, aka SBF. His then-girlfriend, Caroline Ellison, was in charge of Alameda Research, a trading house. Sam would insist that these two companies were separate entities, but behind the scenes, FTX was using customer funds and giving them to Alameda Research, and these customer funds were squandered. From its inception, FTX funneled consumer deposits into bank accounts owned or managed by Alameda. According to the Department of Justice and SEC, Bankman-Fried also personally borrowed more than $1 billion from Alameda. Again, this was all funded by FTX customers. He also approved similar loans to his parents and FTX executives. But on the surface, everything was perfect. FTX was growing quickly in size, and by 2021, they had celebrity endorsements, a stadium named after them, and Sam himself was even mixing with politicians. In September of 2022, Bloomberg reported the close ties between FTX and Alameda. Then on November 2nd of 2022, CoinDesk published an article that exposed that $5.8 billion out of the $14.6 billion of assets on the balance sheets of Alameda Research were linked to an FTX crypto token that was made out of thin air. I've covered the full story of this in the previous episode, but long story short, this triggered a massive sell-off of people trying to get their money out. In the end, FTX couldn't pay back their customers as their deposits were loaned to Alameda. Essentially, FTX users couldn't withdraw their funds, and the company would file for bankruptcy on November 11, 2022. A month later, Sam Bankman-Fried was arrested in the Bahamas, where FTX was headquartered, and then he was extradited to the US. He was placed under house arrest, but was taken into custody in August. Okay, so let's talk about the trial. On the 3rd of October, SBF began his trial at a court in New York. There are going to be 2 trials, but the second will be in March 2024. As for the charges on the first trial, they're essentially multiple counts of wire fraud and money laundering. The United States government is accusing SBF and his friends of misappropriating consumer funds and giving it to Alameda Research. They were lying to consumers, lenders, and investors, which amounts to fraud. SBF was also accused of being the leader of the scheme. So we all know that billions in consumer funds disappeared, and that was only highlighted when people panicked and all tried to get their money out of FTX all at once. But where did the money go? Well, SBF either lost it in risky investments, acquisitions, debt servicing, making loans to himself and others, A-list celebrity endorsements, marketing campaigns, and, of course, political donations. According to the courts, Bankman-Fried spent $100 million in political contributions and bought a $40 million penthouse where he and other FTX executives lived. The loans were also used to buy luxury jets, and the SEC claims that these transactions were, quote, at times not documented at all. The hope is that 90% of these funds will eventually be recovered and returned to the victims. During the trial, SBF and the defense made him out to be an overworked, young businessman that was just trying to do the right thing. He simply just made a few mistakes. Maybe his risk management wasn't perfect, but he never purposefully tried to defraud anyone. He said that he didn't know that the funds of FTX customers were being misused until just before the collapse. Sam's defense team blamed his ex-girlfriend for the bankruptcy of both companies, emphasizing her ineptitude and failure to hedge Alameda's financial positions. But unfortunately for Sam, his ex-girlfriend, Caroline, would sing like a bird and destroy him. Caroline Ellison, the CEO of Alameda Research and the ex-girlfriend of Sam, was about to testify. There was no one better positioned and no one closer to Sam. She was the perfect person to shed light on his actions. The pair of them would meet at Jane Street, a trading firm where they both worked after college. Caroline took to the stand. She was asked to point out Sam in the crowd and describe what he was wearing. "He's over there. Wearing a suit?" Yes, that's right. For today, Sam had ditched his trademark black t-shirt and cargo shorts for a grey suit and purple tie in the courtroom. The prosecutor, Danielle Sassoon, asked Caroline, quote, "When you were working at Alameda, did you commit any crimes?" Ellison replied, "Yes, we did." Sassoon continues, quote, "When you say we, who do you mean by we?" Caroline, "I mean Sam and I and others. Fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and money laundering." Sassoon, "Did you commit these crimes alone?" Ellison replied, "No, they were committed with Sam." Caroline Ellison would go on to say that the decision to use FTX consumer funds to cover Alameda's losses was, quote, Sam's decision. Interestingly, in the court hearing, she also mentioned that Sam wanted to become the President of the United States someday. I'm sure that would have been interesting. She would also go on to testify about how important Sam's image was, including specifically his hair. Sam once stated, quote, "I honestly think it's negative estimated value for me to cut my hair. I think it's important for people to think I look crazy." Sam's attorney would later hilariously state, quote, "There was a time when Sam was probably the worst dressed CEO in the world and had the worst haircut, but that's not a crime," end quote. In the end, Ellison pleaded guilty to 7 criminal charges, including wire fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. She also admitted to giving her parents a $100,000 loan. Barbara Fried and Joseph Bankman are Sam's parents, and ironically, they're both professors of, get this, legal ethics at Stanford Law. It's suspected that their expertise, reputation, and connections helped FTX seem legitimate, at least in the beginning. Sam's parents attended almost every day of the trial and were close advisors to Sam. Sam even previously referred to FTX as, quote, a family business at one point. During the court case, it was revealed that at least Sam's dad is a piece of work. In a revealed email exchange, he complained that being paid $200,000 for advertising FTX was a pittance. Quote, "Gee Sam, I don't know what to say here. This is the first I have heard of a $200K a year salary putting Barbara on this," end quote. That was written to his son in January of 2022. Sam seemingly listened to his parents, and less than 2 weeks later, they received $10 million from Alameda Research and a $10 million Bahamas property. During the court case, a major problem for Sam was that he just didn't keep his mouth shut. Before his arrest, the FTX founder did a string of high-profile media interviews. He appeared on podcasts and tweeted incessantly. And in the courtroom, the comments that he would make during these interviews came back to haunt him. During his cross-examination, time and time again, the prosecution would refer to incriminating statements that Sam gave during these media tours. They would ask Sam, "So, did you say this statement?" And Sam would always say, "I don't remember." And then the prosecution would show evidence of him saying that exact thing. Paul Tuchman, a former prosecutor, sums it up perfectly. If there's anything for Bankman-Fried to regret, it is not the decision to testify, but the public statements he made before his arrest. He made it significantly easier for the prosecution. He made his bed, now he's lying in it. Sam Bankman-Fried got demolished in the courtroom. He stood up to hear what the jury had decided. In only a matter of hours, they found him guilty on all counts. Once the verdict was read, he sat back down with no emotion. His parents, on the other hand, appeared distraught. According to Wired magazine, quote, SBF's father, Joseph Bankman, leaned forward, holding his hands on the side of his head. His mother, Barbara Fried, clutched her hands to her face. Before long, they were holding one another. It was over for SBF. He was whisked away, and he took one last look at his parents, only giving a small, resigned nod of acknowledgement. And with that, he was gone. Sam Bankman-Fried faces up to 115 years in prison. Is he going to get that much time? I doubt it. Although, the founder of FTX will be sentenced on March 28, 2024, so we'll have to wait and see. At least for the moment, he's going to remain incarcerated in Brooklyn, New York, at the Metropolitan Detention Center. Sam Bankman-Fried was seen as the most responsible man in crypto. His exchange, FTX, was a sure bet, extremely safe. He was even poised to start writing the rulebook for crypto regulation. He testified before Congress multiple times, had close connections to lawmakers, in part thanks to $100 million in political donations. But now, he's one of the most famous criminals of the 2020s. And with that is where we stand on the Sam Bankman-Fried case. So thanks for watching. Feel free to check out the previous episode on this. Alright, I'll see you again soon for the next episode. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.